Get your popcorn ready for the College Baseball Insider Show with Matt Grissom and Quentin Mills, giving you all the insights and analysis you need for the weekend slate that college baseball has to offer.
Oh no! Battles deep into the night has left the stadium entirely.
Now, here are your hosts, ready to dive into the top matchups.
What is up, college baseball fans? I'm your host, Matt Grissom, joined as always by my boy Quentin Mills, rocking his Florida hat. We're really on brand today.
We have to be. It's loyalty now. We're in a battlefield here.
But this is an unbiased show. Like I don't know if Q's ever bet against Florida, but I bet against Arkansas all the time. So
I won't bet against them. I just won't play that game. I think that's fair. You know when
that's fair. Yeah. So I want to start off from the top. I am at home with my 4-year-old, and my wife is a teacher. She's got 2 more days left, but the kids are out of school. So if a child bursts in here to disrupt the show, I'm going to apologize in advance. I think Q's got a little one upstairs as well.
You're not turning away.
It's summer.
Summer. We just had a newborn who's all the way upstairs, and then a 2-year-old's running through like a tornado on the main floor. So I apologize for any sounds. Just act like nobody's in the house, and we'll get through this.
All right, so let's dive into it. The biggest announcement of the week, we finally got our regional guide put out. We put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this guide. I think I went 2 or 3 nights in a row, staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning to get it out. Very proud of it. I actually got to go on VSiN last night to talk a little bit about my futures odds, and then realized today that I had said Vanderbilt 12-1, and that was a team that we've kind of dogged all season long just because their offense had been a little stagnant. There is some value if you take 19-1 at Circa. I still don't love this Vanderbilt squad, even though Tim Corbin, who's been there before, like you mentioned before the show, they've got a pretty easy regional. I don't know. They're going to have to get their pitchers back healthy, and their offense is going to have to stay hot, which it did in the SEC tournament where they poured it on Texas A&M. They're late.
They did get Ginther back, so that's going to be huge. Obviously, Futrell, he's got to clean up like the 5th to 6th inning woes that he has. He's solid for all 4, for the first 4, but then he kind of has some mistakes. He is a sophomore, so he's still kind of learning, but they got to get Carter Holton back. It's the problem in college baseball is the injuries, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but to put context to it, the injuries are so hard to figure out. It's almost worse than hockey, where hockey is just like it's an upper or lower body injury. Well, that's actually more than what you get in college baseball, with the exception of, obviously UNC came out pretty candidly about Vance Honeycutt, and then Oregon State with Jacob Kmat. So those were easy for us, but it's typically not easy. I don't know what's going on with him. He didn't seem like himself for a couple starts, so he's not going to pitch in the regionals. I mean, for them to make a run, even at the 12-1 value, like you really need him back for the Supers and potentially Omaha if they can get there.
So you would take Vanderbilt for sure to win this regional.
Yeah, we'll break that down. I think a perfect spot to start in the guide is kind of where we have some futures. Listen, we're not going to sit here and tell you we only have one future and we're banking on one team. That's not smart gambling. You look at the odds, essentially you can bet as many teams as you want, to where if one of those hits, you still have a profit, right? The name of the game is to profit. So if that's taking one bet and you hit it, or taking 6 and still profiting if one hits, that's what we're here for. So I think that's kind of where we start, because I know I'm sitting on a couple people were asking me on Twitter when we released this guy what we thought. So why don't you start, and I'll kind of hand you back the show, but why don't you start with what you actually have for some odds to win it all?
So that's kind of my biggest pet peeve of talking about odds, is when you talk about what you bet, 6 months ago. We obviously got better numbers, but like Wake Forest was a team that we bought in on early. And I guess that just goes to show the importance of watching these shows and getting on what we get on earlier. Florida is another one. With what the Gators have in Sproat and Waldrop and Cags, and that firepower on offense. I mean, they're just as good, if not better, on offense than LSU, more dangerous. And then Arkansas, you kind of talked me into taking a bite out of my own team. Vanderbilt, I did get on 21-1 at circa. Going through here, I think I did get on Virginia. I can't remember the number. I want to say it was like 35-1.
You got a better line than me.
Outside of that, Clemson was I think we got 40-1 on Clemson when I bet that one. But I mean, coming down the pike, the ones that, and I just tweeted it out, the ones that I'm most confident in are Wake Forest, Florida, Arkansas, Clemson. LSU, I have not bet. I think they've got the tools necessary to win it all. I just don't think they're going to. And I felt that way from the very beginning. And then I do have Tennessee from way back long ago, where their number is actually way better now than what it was when I bet it. So bad value there, but Tennessee's got the pitching staff that if they could turn it on and figure out how to win away from Knoxville, they're dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pulling up. I had Virginia. I got them at 25-1 through Bet Saracen, I believe. It's hard for me to bet in Virginia with the Virginia teams being blacked out, so I kind of had to outsource it there. I believe I got Florida at 13-1 early, but you can still find them kind of in the 700 to 10-1 range. I still think there's value in that. I also have Wake Forest. I did catch them early on. They're probably the only team that there's really no value in. Now, if you're late to the game and you just want to put one future, I mean, 4-1, I guess would be okay. You know, you win $400 if you do a $100 bet. So there would be value if you're only taking one. Typically, people who are gambling with us have more than, one. So I would say that's not value. I also have Arkansas. I believe I have Arkansas, and I wish I'd have got it way earlier in the season because I'm looking at – sorry, I don't want to give the wrong information. I have 14-1, so I think that's good value. I also have Tennessee at 14-1. We talked about it, right? It seems to be mental with them. If they can just get past that side of things, they do strike out a lot. And on the offensive side, they have the pitching to carry them. If they can just figure out how to swing the bats outside of Lindsey Nelson, they're one of the most dangerous teams. I would put them up there with Wake Forest, Florida, and Arkansas as serious top 4 teams to win it all because they have 3 solid starters. They have some good bullpen pieces on all of those teams, and that's really what it takes. I said it last night as an intro on Notebook Wagering. We're going to do a special college baseball show tonight. The teams that win are the teams with solid starters, and then also the team that can spot start somebody in the bullpen and still be okay and win a bullpen game. I mean, that's a necessity because if you go out of the losers bracket and you start running your bullpen thin and you can't make up for that when your starters are running on short days rest, you'll never get further into the tournament. So those are some value plays for me. I would say another good value piece, just depending on their pitching. Okie State could make a run. I don't have a ticket on it, but they have, Carson Benji, they have Rock Reggio. They've got a couple guys offensively that are studs. We expected them to be a College World Series contender at the beginning of the year. They have Ben Abrams. They've got Jaron Watts-Brown. Like, they have the guys to step up and be elite pitchers. They're just been a roller coaster. So if you can get a consistent, first 6 innings from all 3 of their starters, there's no reason why they can't be a top 8 team right there either.
So I was asked last night about the mid-majors. Obviously you've got Coastal Carolina as a regional host, and then Indiana State and Terre Haute. Do you think either of those come out of a super?
I think UConn can. UConn swings the bat pretty well. That's not obviously a mid-major, but they're a lower seed. If I had to pick a mid-major that I think could go the farthest, I would say DBU, Dallas Baptist, or Roberts. I think what their problem is going to be is they've been put on notice now because they did sweep Oklahoma State, in their 1-1 midweek series this season. So that tells me right there that Oklahoma State's going to be focused. They're not going to let this team kind of slide under the radar on them. If they maybe have taken one or lost both of those in close games, you might have been able to sneak up on Okie State thinking, oh, we're going to handle them. It's no big deal. And then boom, you upset them. I'm not as high on Oral Roberts as everybody else. I think Dallas Baptist has a complete team if they can just stay consistent on the pitching. I mean, we saw them kind of run out of gas in the Conference USA Championship, which was pretty unexpected for that. We both had a ticket on that, so that was a tough loss. But I think Indiana State's kind of wasted money, in my opinion. They just can't swing the bats well. You know, is it really that much of a home field advantage to play there? I can't say for certain it is. They have the pitching, but you got to be able to score runs. And you look at a team like Iowa, who's in there, not a mid-major, but a 2-seed. I think they can kind of take that region from a mid-major team. So, and Campbell, I'm not that high on either. I think they could get out of the regionals and not be surprised. But if they match up with Florida, I just don't know if they can beat that three-headed monster on the mound.
I think the Conway regional with Coastal Carolina, Virginia, I do like. I mean, obviously, I'm going to root for that ticket to get home. But we've also got money on Coastal, and I kind of like their path. If they get through their regional, play the Super with Charlottesville, you know, there's kind of eliminating the home field advantage with staying on the East Coast, because I feel like the Chanticleer fan base will travel. So that could be an interesting Super. Yeah, it could be a pretty interesting Super regional.
I would say this: if Coastal makes it, I'm going to try to go Friday to the Virginia Army game to see the regional round. I may try to go Sunday. It depends on where Florida's at in the tournament, who they're playing. I might have to turn the ticket down, but if Virginia and Coastal were in the Super Regionals together, I will make an appearance to one of the games, because that'll be electric.
So let's go down the guide. Seeds 1 through 16. Now, we'll only spend a couple of minutes on each one because we don't want to keep you all afternoon, but let's start from the top. Winston-Salem Regional with Wake Forest. No one seed has won it all since 1999 in Miami. Can Wake Forest win it all? Circa actually hung the yes-no prop on it. I think it was the yes is plus 350. The no is minus 450 or something like that. So pretty interesting way to attack it. What stands out to you in this regional?
To answer that question, I think they have the roster to do it, just like Tennessee had it the other year, 2 years ago, or last year, I'm sorry. The one thing I think that's going to help Wake Forest's chances in comparison to that Tennessee team was Tennessee was overly cocky. I think Wake Forest plays a lot more humble baseball, so I think that can get them farther because they're not going to sit there and kind of overlook some teams. So with that being said, I think Wake Forest gets through this pretty easily. I know Northeastern's a scrappy team. They've played, you know, I believe they beat Boston College and UConn in the same season. I just don't see Maryland, Mason, you know, and shout out to Sean Camp, local guy, really turning that program around. So that'll be fun to see the Patriots kind of back in postseason play. But back to this, I just don't see Wake Forest really sweating anybody. Maryland can swing the bats, you know, with anybody in the country. They've got their shortstop, I believe, almost has 100 RBIs. I think he's sitting at 98, which is crazy in this era of baseball. It's just so hard to battle through Rhett Lauder game 1, Sean Sullivan or Seth Keener game 2, and then Josh Hartle game 3. You know, and then the opposite of Sullivan and Keener coming out of the bullpen, or if you have to play an elimination game. All 4 of those are starters and either number 1s or number 2s on any team in the country. So with that being said, Maryland's pitching, I don't think it's going to hold up. I think that could be your championship regional game there, but I think Wake Forest kind of cruises.
Yeah, I completely agree. Maryland was a team we backed early, but they just, I don't know. They're too hot and cold. Yeah, Northeastern, I hope that they beat Maryland, honestly, in the first game, because that can kind of make things a lot more interesting. Let's go down to the Gainesville Regional at 2. You like this Florida team?
I do. I will say this, though. Everybody says, and the way they do the seedings, Florida did, on paper, get one of the easier regions. But let's not sleep on UConn. I know it's Jeff Dawson's guys. We kind of bashed them all year, but last year they did make some noise. They beat Maryland in Maryland to advance to the Supers. And quite frankly, they should have beaten Stanford. They beat them game 1. Game 2, they had a lead. I think they gave up back-to-back home runs in like the 8th or 9th against Stanford to force a game 3. And then Stanford just flexed their muscle in the day game because UConn ran out of pitchers. And that was pretty evident. So don't sleep on them. Don't sleep on Texas Tech either. This is a team that they've got Molina as their number 1. He's a pretty solid starter. They can swing the bats with the best of them. They batted .313 in the Big 12, which is, tip of the cap. It's a good division. They have some good pitchers in that conference, and they're a pesky team in recent years in the playoffs. I would say even as far as the last 10 years, they're always kind of in that College World Series talk, between regional supers and College World Series. They've been there before. So yeah, on paper, they're probably not the best Texas Tech team that they've had in the past 10 years, but they're still scrappy. I think what's going to help Florida is playing at home. When you look at their pitchers, Jack Haglio, Brandon Sproat, and Hurston Waldrop, their numbers are almost cut in half when they're at home versus away. They're going to be able to pitch really well and be very comfortable in their own environment. It's going to be rowdy. Florida does have a good fan base. So I think Florida, I'm not going to say has no sweat, but I think they kind of get through this without, a total mishap or anything like that.
Yeah, I said I would lay Florida up to -200 to win this regional. We were able to bet the regional futures, I think, on Barstool Sports, but I like Florida. I mean, I think they should get out of this pretty unscathed. Texas A&M or Texas Tech can't win outside of Lubbock. They've got a 9-14 record. Their RPI and strength of schedule just aren't as good as the SEC teams that Florida faced. That would be really the only shot that I would give anyone to upset them. Florida A&M is not going to be able to do it. UConn just isn't battle tested enough. I mean, they lost to Xavier, and Xavier's not a great baseball team. So no disrespect to UConn. I think it's going to come down to Florida, Texas Tech. Ultimately, Florida should be able to handle Texas Tech with ease. So the Fayetteville Regional. All right. So this is by Parker Fleming with College Football Graphs. He has this as the most difficult regional out there, and I don't understand all of the statistics that quantify that. But you can just look at it on paper. You've got the Big 12 champs and the TCU Horned Frogs. You've got Arizona, who lost in the Pac-12 championship to Oregon, I think, and then Santa Clara, who's had a pretty remarkable season themselves. This regional worries me. I mean, as a Razorback fan, it worries me. I think TCU, with what they did early on in the season, they beat Arkansas like 62-5 or something in the college baseball showdown. The guys can hit. Their bats cooled off during the regular season, but it kind of picked back up again at the end. Arkansas is solid with their pitching core being back to kind of a consistent rotation with Taggart, McIntyre, Holland, and then Hagen Smith. You get Jared Wagner back. That was huge. Tavian Josenberger, he's back. As far as I know, we're going to get everyone back in the infield that was suffering John Bolton that suffered the injury against Vanderbilt. Peyton Holt got a little banged up. Stovall, of course, is out for the year. But Dave Van Horn has a way of winning games when he has to, and especially at Baum-Walker. We're 30-4 at home. That's kind of where I'm anchoring my handicap on this regional. Is I'm going to put faith in Arkansas, who's, by God, let me down more times than not. But I do think the Razorbacks come out of this regional. They're going to fight like hell to get it, but yeah, it's going to come down to Arkansas, TCU, and I think Arkansas's probably got enough of the pitching advantage to come out a winner.
I do too. Arizona has really good offensive numbers. Their pitching numbers were good in the Pac-12 tournament, but they weren't great overall. They have a losing record on the road. This is a different level of baseball from Pac-12 to the SEC. I think even TCU from the Big 12 to the SEC this year in particular is a bigger jump. TCU has some injuries. They do play okay on the road. there's three things that I think are X factors. The loss you said earlier, I think it was like 17-4. Dave Van Horn's going to have that posted in the locker room. That is going to be a massive talking point of, hey, why don't we just this practice or right before the game, let's have a little reminisce. How about that time we played them, earlier this year and they just beat the 11 piss out of us? Let's not have that again. That's going to fire them up. Brady Tygart, I'm assuming, is not going to be on a pitch count. I would say more of an inning count. If they can get 6 out of him, I think that's kind of a full start, especially in college. It's pretty rare for guys to go 7, 8, 9 innings because it's just something that they don't typically do in this year, especially with like saving arms, especially in his case. But then you bring in like a McIntyre or a Gage Wood to close it out, and it's bada boom, bada bang. That's it. And then the number 3, there's a guy you didn't mention who I told you earlier in the year, like, where is he? It wasn't Peyton Stovall because he's obviously out. Brady Slavin is back. He had that phenomenal year in 21. He was torching the ball, playing excellent defense. Last year, he kind of was a little iffy. This year, he started iffy. The guy is back. You look at what they've done, his name is always tied to an RBI or to a 2-out single that, extends the inning and then lets somebody else come in. And then Holt, like those guys, I think Brady Slavens is the X factor. If he's on, I think everybody else plays better. So those are the 3 reasons why I think Arkansas is going to get past this. Even a 4th, they've got one of the best pitching staffs in the country.
All right. Clemson Regional. Clemson, the hottest team in the country right now, winners of 16 straight coming into this regional where they'll take on Lipscomb, Charlotte, Tennessee. Are the Vols going to be able to win? Are the Vols going to be able to assert their dominance on the mound away from Knoxville?
I think the smart play is play the odds and take Clemson and Tennessee both at plus money. I got Clemson at plus 135 and Tennessee at plus 145. You take both of them for an equal amount on the risk for your payout. If one of them wins, you're going to be profiting money, even if they play each other. So you sit back on a winning ticket. These are the best 2 teams. Charlotte can swing the bat, but they also haven't faced Andrew Lindsay, who projectedly is probably going to be who they go against. So to me, that kind of takes them out of the equation. Lipscomb, hey, it was a great season. It's good for them to kind of have some decent baseball. They're way overshadowed in Nashville with Vanderbilt. So they'll get a little exposure playing Clemson. This is truly a coin flip for me between Clemson. I wasn't as high as maybe Johnny and you were on them earlier, a couple weeks back. I think they're a good team, but it's Eric Backett's first year. I mean, is he really going to take in year 1 his team to the College World Series? That's extremely hard to do. It's been done before. It's just the odds aren't in his favor. Tennessee has one of the best pitching matchups that has been pretty consistent all year long. The problem is their bats. If they can just figure out how to swing the bats like I talked about earlier, there's no reason why they can't win the College World Series because as dominant as their pitching is and as deep as it is, that's not a concern for them. The concern is just swinging the bats, not striking out, and not making so many errors in the field. It's a mental game. If they can figure it out, I don't know what they got to do. They've got to bring in a therapist for all the players to speak to, the night before, do whatever you have to do. But they can figure it out. They're a dangerous team. So that's kind of the X factor is their mentality. But if you take both bets and they both make it to the regional final, then you're looking at a winning ticket.
Let's go down south to Cajun country to Baton Rouge. The LSU Tigers are the 5th seed. Have you ever eaten jambalaya gumbo? You've been down there?
I love it.
Good.
I like the crawfish.
Virginia boy, got to get you down south.
Hey, we are considered the South.
That's a reach. LSU kind of gets a cakewalk regional, in my opinion, especially with the Beavers dealing with injuries. Tulane, 19-40. I know you went on Twitter and talked about this team and the automatic qualifiers. This team's 3-11 against RPI top 50 teams. They've got a losing record so bad their mother can't even love them. Sam Houston, decent, 38-23, but not going to cut it in this regional. It leaves LSU. I mean, the 55.1% win probability that Parker put out, I think that should be more like 80. And I know that's a little bit aggressive and a stretch because it's harder to win in baseball when you're an elite team. But I don't see LSU stumbling in the least in this regional.
I don't either. You look at Oregon State's 28.5 win probability. That was before 2 of their 3 starters were listed out as an injury. So I think that we're fairly accurate when we say it should be kind of in that 75 plus range with those injuries. Oregon State to me was the only team that could challenge them. I went on Twitter. I got a bounty put on my head in the state of Louisiana, specifically New Orleans, by Tulane. I had former players coming for my neck about bashing these kids. And I tried to explain to them, it's not the kids. They went out and they played the ball. They might have lost 40 times trying to do it, but they won when it mattered. The system is broke, and they took it personal. It wasn't personal. It could have been LSU in the situation, and they shouldn't be in the tournament. You know, especially when you got Kelly's Kansas State Wildcats sitting at home with a better record. That's a travesty to have a 19-40 team in the tournament. I think it's bad baseball all year long. You had all year long to prove you can win. You didn't do it, so why do you get a chance? Well, they're going to get slaughtered by LSU. LSU's worst pitcher probably on that team would be a number 1 for Tulane. So I actually hope that the Tigers put about 30 on them just to shut the Tulane fans up who did take it personal, because it wasn't a personal jab at them. So
just kicking the team while they're down.
I mean,
they're
just murder them.
They're 19-40. They've had a long year.
I hope the score is 40-19.
Nashville Regional, Vanderbilt. This you couldn't get polar opposites between the 1 and 2 seeds. This is why I love this regional preview. Vanderbilt is all reds in the hitting. Oregon is all greens in the hitting. And then it flips. Vanderbilt green through pitching. Oregon red through pitching. Vanderbilt comes out of this, right? This is a no-brainer.
I think so. I think this is probably, in my opinion, even though Vandy has their hitting woes, they seem to have kind of found something in the tournament. It only took them 5 games against Florida to figure it out, but they did. They hit the ball really well, and then from that point on, they were really hitting the ball well. Oregon's got some decent pitching. I believe Caden Aoki is probably their number 1. Would you agree with that?
Stoffel.
Or Stoffel, I'm sorry. I'm flipped.
No,
USC's Aoki, but
yeah, USC.
yeah. But Stoffel, what's his deal? Like, he was injured in the Pac-12 tournament. Was that out of caution? They're just not throwing him? Is he? There's no word on him. Does he even pitch? If he does pitch, is he 100%?
I'm not sure. I would assume he's got to go. I mean, this weekend at some point.
It's live or die. I look at Vanderbilt's pitching. You know, they're getting some guys back. Cunningham's starting to throw well. Riley's throwing well, but Riley kind of needs to be put on a last-minute spot. It seems like his mental thing is when he has too much time to prepare. So Tim Corbin has been kind of telling him 3 minutes before the game, hey, you're starting tonight, bud. Suit up. And he throws well. So keep the strategy, whatever Tim Corbin's doing. I talked about it a couple weeks back. The teams that really win have good coaches. Brian O'Connor, Tim Corbin, Dave Van Horn, Kevin O'Sullivan. The managers matter in college baseball, and he's got Vanderbilt playing good ball at the right time, even though the stats necessarily aren't going to show it on the offensive side. They're going to get through Oregon.
Charlottesville Regional, the Virginia Caps, we touched on a little earlier. They've got a 50.6 win probability. They're greens all the way across the board. Do you see East Carolina challenging them? I've seen a lot of people are on them. A lot of people want to back this Pirates team. They're 4-8 against RPI top 50. They're
scrappy. They're definitely scrappy. I mean, they played really well against Coastal, Campbell. Now, they didn't win every game. They played against UNC well. So, they were challenged this year. I'm not going to say they played a easy schedule. Virginia and East Carolina kind of have a rivalry. In the DMV area, a lot of people go to either UVA or East Carolina. If you don't get accepted into the Virginia schools, you kind of just default into East Carolina. It's an easy school. Beautiful campus. I'll give them that. Great baseball program. They're lacking in comparison to the last few years' worth of teams, in my opinion, if you compare them. They've gotten the better of Virginia the last few times they've matched up in the playoffs. I think Brian O'Connor is really going to point that out. I think the pitching for Virginia is just more consistent than ECU outside of Yaskavich. Gross, Root, they have some good moments. Carter Spivey has some really good moments, but they can also get hit. I think they do that a little more often than UVA. UVA kind of had that hot, cold, hot. So they've gotten their woes out, in my opinion. And they have the best batting average offense in the country. They've got Jake Geloff and Kyle Teal. Kyle Teal's batting almost 450. He's one of the best catchers, probably a top 10 overall pick in this year's draft. And then you got Griffo Farrell, who's batting over 400 in the leadoff spot. Ethan Anderson. Like, they're just too good. I think East Carolina could challenge them, maybe not in the sense of like make them sweat and play a second game, but I think they can kind of keep the game close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means.
Let's go out west. Stanford Cardinal. They play host to Texas A&M, Cal State Fullerton, and San Jose State A&M, most notably coming off the loss in the SEC championship game against Vanderbilt. Schloss has this team playing well right now. I think they've finally figured it out as far as their pitching rotation and what works. Obviously, with guys like Austin Boast and I can't think of the other guy's name, just escaped me. They're hitting the ball well. Stanford's still better in just about every category except batting average and ERA. Did the Aggies go out west and come home a champ of this regional?
I'm going to say yes, because I think there's value there. Stanford, again, we talked about it. They didn't play anybody in the top 25. So, yeah, we know Quinn Matthews is good. He obviously, outside of his Pac-12 blow up, he pitched really well all season long. But against what competition? Texas A&M, they had a down year in comparison to last year, but they were a top 10 preseason ranked team for a reason. They were in Omaha last year with Schloss. The guy knows how to get his teams there. He got TCU there on multiple occasions. He got Texas A&M there last year, and they played really well. They made it to the semis. They have good players. They've got Trevor Warner, who really exploded in the playoff run last year. He bats 260, but I think he's batting way better than that right now. It's just there's so many at bats into the season, like it's taking so much more to try to move the numbers. But he's swinging the ball, the bat, scorching hot. He can hit for power whenever he wants. Jace Lavallette's a power guy. He's a great hitter. Austin Bose, like they have the guys to do this. Juan Sing, however you say his name, he's stepping up. If they can just get Nate Detmer to get back to what he was last year, they're a formidable team, and they are a top 10 team with that offense and that pitching staff. Detmer's just got to figure it out, and maybe he's going to now that he's not the number one guy heading in. Maybe that's stress-free for him. So I actually like Texas A&M to challenge Stanford here and give me the plus 175 regional victory.
Yeah, that's another one you could play, the Stanford and Texas A&M both at plus money if you just wanted to hedge out a winner. 80% win probability between the two, so I feel pretty confident in that. Going down to Coral Gables, we can't talk about a Coral Gables regional without talking about the weather. Thunderstorms and rain, wind all weekend. So we'll see what crazy thing happens. Maybe Maine will come out of it. Miami plays host to Maine Black Bears, Louisiana, and the Texas Longhorns.
Hey, maybe the Maine Black Bears get back to their prominence. They used to be a powerhouse.
Okay. George Washington used to be president.
Well,
Texas Longhorns are probably going to save Lucas Gordon. They could probably throw LeBaron Johnson Jr. against Louisiana, come away with a win. I think ultimately this comes down to a series between Texas and Miami for the championship of this regional. Do you agree? Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think Miami's striding in the right place. I think even though the weather is going to be a factor, they did get Carson Lagone back, who was their initial ace. So that's going to make Gage Zeal even more dangerous. They can throw Rosario out of the pen now with Lagone back. And they also have a good bullpen as of late. They can throw those guys in like Torres. And then they have this, I can't think of his name, tall, skinny, left-handed side thrower. Like they have a good bullpen to where they can piece together starts. They've done it all year, so they're experienced in it and they're okay with it. Yohani Morales is probably swinging the best bat of any third baseman in the league right now. I think it's incredible for Miami to win this. I think the plus 120 is good.
Going out east to Conway, not the Arkansas that I'm from, but Conway, South Carolina. The Chanticleers play host to the Duke Blue Devils, Wilmington Seahawks, and Rider. Fun fact, Carolina has 80 teams in this college baseball postseason between them. Duke and Coastal are split kind of right down the middle. Their odds would reflect that, both at plus 150. Who comes out of this regional?
I think Coastal does. I just playing at home. Their pitchers have kept them in games all year long. They have a good closer in Starkey, who just happens to shut down guys. He doesn't overpower you, but we're not high on this Duke team. I think Coastal gets it done at home.
Yep. I think Duke's dealing with some injuries too. Stillwater Regional, Oklahoma State made it in as a host. It looked very skeptical early on in the season. Dallas Baptist is playing really good ball. They're the 2 seed. Washington, the 3. Oral Roberts at the 4. At first glance, before I really dove into the Fayetteville Regional, I felt like this was a pretty tough regional for Oklahoma State. I like this Dallas Baptist team. I think they could definitely come out of it. Washington, they're one of those teams where they may score 20 runs, they may score 3 and lose. And then Oral Roberts is a 4 seed, should not be slept on. That was one that I threw a little bit of pizza money on at plus 450 to win it. So tell me who you like to come out of Stillwater.
So I actually took Dallas Baptist at plus 225 and Okie State at 175. Like I talked about earlier, Oral Roberts is on notice for beating Oklahoma State twice already this year, so they're not going to get slept on. And then Kiefer Lord, I think, is going to have to pitch game 1 against a solid Dallas Baptist team. That's not confirmed. It's just what I think. So that's going to waste your best pitcher and your best opportunity to advance, in my opinion. I think this is another one like Tennessee Clemson where you take the 2 best teams, the 1 and 2 seeds, and you take a small profit to end the weekend.
So the 12 seed dorm room regional with Lexington. I don't know if you saw this, but
I did.
Because of a country music concert, which is going to be really good, by the way, the lineup. Kentucky doesn't have any hotels in the radius for fans and teams to stay at. So they are literally giving West Virginia, Indiana, Ball State dorm rooms to stay in. West Virginia comes in, J.J. Weatherholt. We've talked about him several times. Trexel, the pitcher, solid. Indiana's playing decent ball right now, even though their RPI top 50 record's only 7-12. Ball State had a great season, 0-4 against top 50, though, 218th in strength of schedule. Probably not going to make a run. Feel like it comes down to Kentucky and Take Me Home Country Roads. Who comes out of Lexington a winner?
Well, good news for Ball State is I did see a rumor on Twitter they bought the weekend concert pass, so they'll be able to catch Saturday pretty early and check out that solid show. Indiana, West Virginia is going to be a tight game. I would imagine Blake Traxel is going to throw that game, which is going to burn him. Even if they don't throw him in advance, I just don't see anybody beating Kentucky at home. You know, they're 25-6. They've played better competition all year long. I think it's Kentucky's to lose. They're probably sleeping on nice mattresses as well. No,
I want to hate this Kentucky team.
Oh, I hate them, but I got to put my money ahead.
The RPI strength of schedule, I really don't understand it.
I don't either.
Auburn. Let's talk about Auburn. We got some SEC bias here. I'm not real sure how Auburn made it into the hosting picture. Just they're good. They're playing better ball. They've got a losing record against the RPI top 50, though. That's not very good for an SEC school. They are probably the best team as far as hitting in this regional. Samford may have a little something to say about it. But as a 3 seed, they're probably not going to be able to contend. The Samford Bulldogs team 0-7 against RPI top 50 teams. Got a 1.3% probability to win. Penn Quakers, however, a 21% probability as the 4 seed. Southern Miss at 34, and Auburn sits at 43.5. Who comes out of this Auburn region?
This is a pass for me. I think it's a coin flip between Southern Miss and Auburn.
I thought you were going to say Penn Quakers.
Hey, my realtor did play baseball at Penn, so I got to give him a little shout out. It's a coin flip. I mean, Tanner Hall is going to dominate anybody in this region. I just don't know who they go to after Saturday if they make it to the finals. You know, do they kind of bullpen it together? They have been in this situation before where they've beat LSU. They played a tough Ole Miss last year. They're used to playoff ball. Auburn College World Series team last year lost a ton of talent, lost their biggest piece, in my opinion, as Tim Hudson's pitching coach is gone, and it's shown this year. I don't feel confident in Auburn or Southern Miss. I see both coming out of here with no surprise, so it's a stay away from me.
The Terre Haute Regional, and if you could spot that on a map, I know it's where Larry Bird's from. That's about it. So Terre Haute, Indiana State Sycamores, they play host to Iowa, North Carolina, Wright State. I'll tell you, I got very excited about this regional when it first got posted. I thought Iowa was a slam dunk. And then, lo and behold, I start seeing all these people we follow on Twitter that talk college baseball. They're like, oh, North Carolina is going to come out of this regional. And I'm not buying this Tar Heels team. And then they lose Vance Honeycutt. I think Iowa should be the clear favorite to come out of this regional. And that's no disrespect to Indiana State. I just don't think that they're very good. They're 2-9 against RPI top 50 teams. They're not battle tested enough. Iowa's got a winning record on the road. Convince me otherwise. I think Hawkeyes are a slam dunk here.
I can't convince you. I took them at plus 230. I like them. I actually am interested. I kind of want to see if Wright State can kind of muster up some sweat on some of these teams. They hit the ball really well. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I think they make some games interesting. Vance Honeycutt's out. I just don't trust North Carolina's pitching with Knapp. He had a really good start against UVA, which he hasn't done all year. He's got almost a 5 ERA. Connor Bovera, I'm not, trustworthy of. If you have to give me somebody out of this regional, I'm going to take Marcus Morgan and Brody Breck, and then a pretty decent Iowa offense to win this. You talked about it. Indiana State has decent pitching. They just can't hit the ball. And 2-9, one of their wins was against Vanderbilt, which we talked about, had their woes earlier on in the season. So I don't even necessarily count that as a solid win, if I'm being honest. So give me Iowa plus 230.
Well, the committee felt bad for South Carolina's coach, given that plea of why he should be a regional host for the body of work through the season. So despite the Gamecocks going 3-11 down the stretch in their last 14 games, South Carolina has a regional hosting spot in Columbia. They invite Campbell, NC State, and Central Connecticut State. I pray Campbell comes out of this regional.
I do once too. It's again, an easier matchup.
They get put in a regional with an SEC. It's like, okay, here, don't go beat a Pac-12 or a ACC team. You're going to have the best of the best. Go beat an SEC team, and we'll determine your legitimacy. So I kind of leaned NC State Campbell, but at the end of the day, it's probably South Carolina's regional. Even though Campbell's where my money's at, that's who I'm going to root for.
It's a stay away for me. I made you laugh yesterday. I've created a 3-headed coin for this. Yeah. If you flip it, it's however it lands. NC State, Campbell, or South Carolina could win this, and I'm not going to be surprised. NC State has decent pitching, decent hitting. They just haven't stepped up in moments. Campbell, they're going to be playing pissed off, in my opinion. This should have been their region. So I think that's going to make them kind of play pissed off baseball. They have Cade Kuehler, who's probably going to pitch Saturday. They hit the ball statistically with some of the better teams in the country. We'll see how that stacks up against pretty decent SEC pitching in South Carolina. South Carolina does get Brandon Wimmer back. They get their starting third baseman back, LaCroix. They also get Cole Musina, the power hitting catcher. So they're getting healthy at the right time. It sounds like Sanders is going to come out of the pen to kind of reset himself. This could be where South Carolina wakes up and becomes that team that beat LSU in a contested series and then swept Florida. So it's a stay away for me. But if you're value betting here strictly, I think Campbell and NC State are where you roll it.
If you flip a 3-headed coin, that's like just a triangle, right? So
yeah, but it's got to land some way.
Would it land somewhere? Alabama hosts in Tuscaloosa. I'm so glad that Alabama became a host. I know their story is cool. They're going to have to do a 30 for 30 on it at some point with Brad Bohannon getting fired over the gambling allegations. And Jeff Davis at Circa actually tweeted something about why he's making fun of the other books for not hanging Alabama lines, because the pitcher that they swapped, the difference in ERA was 0.01. That's caused this whole uproar, like they were trying to throw the game. But Alabama, their greens all across the board, they pretty much lead this whole regional in every category, with exception to Troy, who has one more home run. Boston College was a team with Chris Flynn we backed religiously. I feel like earlier on, they kind of fell off. Troy, 4-6 against RPI top 20 teams, and Nicholls State, they're 1-1 against RPI top 20. The scope is just not big enough to take the Colonels any chance at all that anybody but Alabama comes out of this regional.
No, I think it's pretty simple. Boston College has 2 pitchers. Henry League's probably going to pitch game 1 for them. They'll probably win that game against Troy. They'll play Saturday and probably throw Chris Flynn, but we rode him hot early on. He had a hot arm for a bit, and then it kind of cooled off in the northern weather, and he started getting mauled later on as the season went. Alabama's a really good hitting team, really sound pitching team. They're playing with motivation. They had every reason to kind of pack up this season and go home, and everybody would have been okay with it when you lose your head coach. They've actually played better since he's been gone, more consistent. So I think it's pretty easy. I would put them and Vanderbilt as probably the 2 easiest regionals right now.
So to recap, your best bets, I'm on Arkansas, Dallas Baptist, Coastal Carolina, Iowa, Virginia, Campbell, Florida, LSU, Clemson, and West Virginia to all win their respective regionals. And you want me to read yours, or do you have it pulled up?
Yeah, I got Vanderbilt minus 125, Clemson plus 145, Tennessee plus 135, Florida minus 143. Like you said, I play them heavily up to minus 200, Arkansas plus 120, TCU plus 315, Dallas Baptist plus 225, Okie State plus 175, Iowa plus 230, Virginia minus 106. If I had to pick my locks, I would probably say it's Vanderbilt, Florida, and Virginia.
So I tweeted last night, Oakland Sports they have the ability to parlay regional winners. And I tweeted LSU, Wake Forest, and Florida. Who loses that parlay? It pays plus 212. I feel like that's free money right there. You could even throw in a team, I think, like Alabama, if you could bet the Alabama line.
I think you throw Vandy in there.
Yeah, I even think you could get cute and throw Vanderbilt and Arkansas in there, and then just bet TCU plus the 3 whatever to kind of negate your bet. And you're going to get plus, I think it was 738 or something. So that would be like a little lunch money, pizza money bet. Outside of that, the lines are up, but I haven't seen just a whole lot of pitching announcements yet. I did go ahead and play 4 games. I played Texas A&M minus 165. I played TCU minus 130. I played Campbell minus 137, and then I played Iowa minus 121.
There it is.
Right on cue.
I'll
let you go through yours real quick.
Yep. I've got Dallas Baptist minus 135 as well. Texas A&M minus 165. As I've said, I think they win this conference. I've got Iowa minus 130. I would imagine I did see Marcus Morgan's going to pitch. He's a stud, so that leaves Brecht on Saturday. And then I'm going to lean West Virginia minus 150 if Traxel pitches game 1. If he does not, I'm going to lay off of it. And then I've got 2 parlays. I've got Miami, Vanderbilt, Florida, and Arkansas at plus 107. I just don't see how they lose there. Hey, it's like a Steph Curry interview. Get the kid on the camera. It's fine.
Right. Yeah.
Let's get his
All right.
pick.
Say hi. Hi. All right.
Up,
there
buddy?
you go.
And then I've got Clemson, LSU, and Coastal minus 104. I just don't see them losing their first game matchups. Who's he picking? We need a pick.
Who's gonna win tomorrow?
Him.
He is Florida. All right, there. Lock of the century. Vegas. I've got Vegas Dave over here giving out a minus 500 winner.
That's a whale play.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. We're going to hit back I would like to do like a regional recap show kind of earlier on next week before we get out into the super regionals. So stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at NCAA Insiders. I'm at Grissom Tweets. That's Q Mill. Q, close us out.
As always, we put in the research so you don't have to. Cash some tickets.
Cheers, everybody.